Welcome to the Pardes channel. Today we explain Numbers chapter 21 in a clear and simple way, step by step. This specific chapter is just an incredibly dense, action-packed arc in the text. In just a few short verses, we're going to trace the Israelites through some really severe internal crises, including a terrifying plague of venomous snakes, all the way to these massive, sweeping military victories that absolutely secure their path forward. It's a historical account of extreme lows and triumphant highs, and we are going to walk through exactly what happens.
Okay, let's dive into this. Before we hit the first verse, just to give you some brief context, know that the Israelites are nearing the very end of their long wilderness journey. They are facing hostile kings from the outside and their own deep impatience from the inside. We're going to follow this roadmap step by step today. We'll cover the battle at Hormah, the bronze snake crisis, the journey to the well, and finally, the monumental defeats of King Sihon and King Og.
Section 1. The Battle at Hormah, an unprovoked attack in the Negev.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how suddenly this conflict begins as a distinct historical episode located geographically down in the south. If we look directly at the primary text, verse 1 tells us that the Canaanite king of Arad, who lived in the south, the Negev region, hears that Israel is coming along the road to Atharaim. The text is very clear about who initiates this conflict. The Canaanite king attacks first. It's completely unprovoked. He fights against Israel and actually takes some of them captive. Naturally, this prompts a really profound reaction from the Israelites. But instead of despairing or giving up, verse 2 shows us that Israel makes a strict, solemn vow directly to God. They say, "If you will indeed deliver these people into my hand, then I will utterly destroy their cities." They are dedicating the spoils and the victory entirely to God.
And we see the immediate result of this vow right in verse 3. The Lord actually listened to Israel's plea and delivered the Canaanites into their hands. The Israelites followed through on their promise. They completely destroyed the Canaanites and their towns. Because of this absolute, devoted destruction, the text tells us the place was named Hormah. In ancient Hebrew, Hormah translates precisely to utter destruction or simply destruction. So it stands as a permanent, physical marker of a promise made to God and a victory granted by Him.
Section 2. The bronze snake crisis and the danger of impatience.
So, leaving the victory at Hormah, the Israelites now have to travel all the way around the land of Edom, moving toward the Red Sea. Having to take this huge detour just absolutely breaks their morale. Verse 4 notes that the soul of the people became deeply impatient because of the way. And, as we see so often, impatience quickly turns to outright rebellion. Look at this quote from verse 5. The people speak out directly against God and against Moses, complaining, "Wherefore have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no bread, and there is no water, and our soul loatheth this light bread." They are physically exhausted, they are doubting their leadership, and they openly express a real hatred for the manna, calling it light bread, that has literally been keeping them alive.
So the crucial point is the sheer speed of cause and effect in this mini-narrative. Let's walk step by step through how this plays out in the plain text. Step 1. The people complain and reject God's provision. Step 2. Divine punishment arrives, and I mean immediately. The Lord sends venomous, fiery snakes right in among the people. They bite the people, and many Israelites die. This tragic consequence brings an immediate realization of guilt. The people rush back to Moses, confessing, "We have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord and against you." They beg Moses to pray for the snakes to be taken away. Step 3. Moses prays, and God gives a very specific, tangible instruction. He tells Moses to make a snake and put it up on a pole. So Moses crafts a bronze snake. Step 4. The cure is enacted. When anyone was bitten by a living snake, if they simply looked at the bronze snake on the pole, they lived. It's a direct, literal test of obedience. Look up at what God commanded and receive immediate salvation from the venom.
Section 3. Journey to the well, traveling and singing.
With the immediate crisis of the snakes past, the narrative moves forward to a period of travel and progression. Verses 10 through 15 provide a highly specific geographic roadmap. They camp first at Oboth, then they set out and camp at Ayabarim, out in the desert facing Moab toward the sunrise. From there they move to the Zered Valley. And finally they set out and camp alongside the Arnon. Now this geographic marker is incredibly important for understanding the plain text of the story. The text explicitly tells us that the Arnon is the border separating the land of Moab from the Amorites. This logical breakdown of their travel shows us they are now perfectly positioned right on the edge of hostile, heavily fortified territory.
But before they face any battle, they arrive at a place called Beer, which in Hebrew simply means well. God tells Moses to gather the people together, promising to give them water. Notice this beautiful snippet of ancient poetry recorded right here in verse 17. Spring up, O well, sing about it, about the well that the princes dug, that the nobles of the people sank with scepters and staffs. I really want you to notice the profound contrast here. Just a few verses ago, they were complaining bitterly, hating their food, and crying about having no water. Now, their simple stop for water turns into this vibrant, joyful moment of musical celebration. They are refreshed, their spirits are lifted, and they're finally ready for what comes next.
Section 4. Defeating King Sihon, the Amorite territory.
Let's move to and see how this builds. The Israelites have practically finished their desert wanderings and are now facing their first massive military encounter. But it is absolutely critical to note that Israel does not seek war first. According to verses 21 and 22, Israel acts diplomatically. They send out messengers to Sihon, the king of the Amorites, with very clear, respectful peace terms. Israel asks simply to pass through the country. They promise not to turn aside into any agricultural fields or vineyards, meaning they'll protect Sihon's food supply. They promise not to drink any of his well water, protecting his resources. And they commit to traveling strictly along the main established route, the King's Highway, until they have completely cleared his borders. They are literally promising to be entirely peaceable travelers.
However, the text in verse 23 shows us that Sihon utterly rejects this diplomatic offer. He refuses Israel passage, but he doesn't just block the road. He escalates the situation dramatically. He musters his entire army, leaves his own territory, and marches out into the desert against Israel, engaging them in a full-blown battle at a place called Jahaz. The cause and effect here is absolute. Sihon's aggressive rejection leads directly to his own downfall, because Israel fights back, puts Sihon to the sword, and takes total control of his land. They capture everything from the Arnon River all the way to the Jabbok River, taking all the Amorite cities, including their major capital city of Heshbon.
To mark this really monumental shift in power, the text quotes another ancient song in verses 27 through 30. Part of it reads, "Come to Heshbon and let it be rebuilt. Let Sihon's city be restored. Fire went out from Heshbon." Now you might be wondering, what does this actually mean? The simple meaning of this poetic record is to provide historical context. The song details how King Sihon had previously gone to war against the former king of Moab and forcefully taken all this land from him. Why is this detail included here? Because it clarifies, legally and historically, that Israel did not take this land from Moab, which they were strictly forbidden by God to do, but rather they rightfully conquered it from Sihon the Amorite, who had taken it first.
Section 5. Conquering King Og. The Road to Bashan.
We now transition into the final geographic movement of this remarkable chapter as Israel leaves the newly conquered Amorite territory and turns up the road heading north toward the region of Bashan. And this brilliantly illustrates a stark contrast based strictly on the events in the text. Think about it. When dealing with Sihon, Israel sent messengers to ask for peaceful passage first. It was a diplomatic failure, but they tried. But when they turned towards Bashan, verse 33 tells us there is no negotiation whatsoever. King Og of Bashan, along with his entire army, marches out immediately to meet Israel in full battle at a place called Edrei. It is an instant, totally unprovoked military confrontation.
Facing this massively aggressive army, the Lord steps in to reassure Moses directly in verse 34. He says, "Do not be afraid of him, for I have handed him over to you with his whole army and his land. Do to him what you did to Sihon." The outcome is reported impartially and definitively in the very next verse. The Israelites strike King Og down, along with his sons and his entire army. They leave absolutely no survivors, and just as they did with the Amorites, they take full possession of Og's land, a complete and total victory.
Section 6. Key Simple Ideas. Lessons from Numbers 21.
Now that we've walked step by step through the entire narrative, an overarching simple narrative really emerges from the plain, literal text. First, the journey is completely one of trials to triumph. This chapter literally begins with an unprovoked attack and that horrifying plague of snakes, but it ends with Israel completely dismantling two powerful hostile kingdoms and securing vast territories. Second, the text highlights the immense power of words. Just think about it. When Israel makes a solemn vow to God at Hormah, it brings utter victory. But when they use their words to impatiently complain against God and Moses, it brings immediate destruction via the fiery serpents. Their words literally shape their reality. Finally, we see a huge theme of immediate consequences. When the people followed the precise physical instructions given to them, simply looking up at the bronze snake, It provided an immediate life-saving cure. Disobedience brings swift trouble. Obedience brings swift salvation.
Section 7. Practical Life Lessons. Applying the text today.
Drawing straight from the physical actions of the Israelites, here is what we can learn and apply to our lives today. First, overcome impatience. The Israelites' morale broke just as they were nearing the very end of their journey because they had to take a detour around Edom. Don't let the length or the unexpected detours of your own journey cause you to lose faith or complain bitterly. Keep going. Second, look up to heal. When bitten by the snakes, the cure required the people to literally lift their eyes to the bronze snake on the pole. In life, we must focus our attention on the given solutions rather than keeping our heads down, dwelling endlessly on the bite of the problem. Look up. And third, seek peace first. Even when dealing with a known adversary like Sihon, Israel's first instinct was to offer a highly detailed, respectful peace treaty. We should always attempt to ask for peaceful passage and find a diplomatic resolution before we ever engage in conflict.
To quickly recap, we have traveled with Israel from the vow at Hormah through the deadly crisis of the bronze snake, celebrated at the well of Beer, and witnessed the monumental defeats of King Sihon and King Og as Israel finally secures its borders. It's a chapter of deep testing and incredible conquest. I'll leave you with this final thought to consider. When facing your own wilderness, will you focus on the trials or will you look up toward the triumph? Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.